Now for Great Day Law, summer is coming to an end and the kids are back at school, but people are gearing up to go out, and the means of transportation, Ubers and Lyfts for many.
Yeah, absolutely. I certainly use them, and a lot of people use rideshare. We're here with lawyer Twilly from LA Law, and he has been telling us that rideshare companies are really involved in quite a few accidents on the roads, and we need to make sure that we know what we're doing if you're involved in an accident. I never even thought about that. Like, what if you're in someone else's car? I assume it's like all of them, but maybe it's not. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, a different set of rules, and there's different paths that you can go down. So, for example, if you're a passenger in an Uber and your Uber driver is at fault, it starts you down one path.
Okay.
If you're a passenger in an Uber and somebody else is at fault, heads you down another path. And then, obviously, if you're the Uber driver, and something happens and it's not your fault, it's an entirely different path. So everybody needs to be safe, but I think the biggest takeaway is if you're a passenger in an Uber vehicle and it doesn't really matter if they're at fault or the other person's at fault, there usually isn't medical payments coverage available to help pay for your medical bills. So it's really important that you contact an attorney to help you out. At least that's in Connecticut.
What about our own insurance? Like, if I'm in an Uber and we get in an accident and I have medical payments or something, like, does it affect me in someone else's car? Or?
Yes, well, it's complicated, but if you're in an Uber and you have medical payments coverage, I don't think your medical payments coverage is going to kick in and help you.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But if this is why you have to hire an attorney. But if you're involved in an Uber accident and you're a passenger and the Uber driver is not at fault, your insurance coverage may kick in. The underinsured motorist portion of the coverage may kick in because what happens in that situation is they'll only have state minimal coverage. So if you have injuries above and beyond $25,000 and you have a higher policy, then you may be able to gain access to your UIM, which I think would happen.
So it's pretty confusing, but what you're saying is, like, what's step one? God forbid you're in an Uber or a Lyft and the driver gets in an accident. What do we do as a passenger, assuming we are able to do something?
911. Call 911, make sure that, the authorities are called to the scene, because you want an independent third party documenting what happened.
Okay.
I mean, if you're injured, obviously 911 so that you get medical attention.
So we call, don't depend on the Uber driver.
Don't depend on the Uber driver to call, because you never know if they're at fault or not. So call yourselves, take care of yourselves, be your own best advocate. Once the dust settles, contact an attorney to figure out what your options are.
Now, what about livery services? I would have assumed that it was the same type of insurance. You're getting in a car, you're trusting them with your lives, so they should be bonded, licensed, insured, and all of the same things. So isn't it the same premise, or it's different with these types of Lyft services, Uber services?
It's contractual. Yeah. At the end of the day, it's contractual. So with Uber and Lyft, they contract with, let's say, James River Insurance Company or Liberty Mutual Insurance Company. So they'll have those different policies. I saw a new company that I'd never heard of before floating around for one of the carriers, but it's contractual. So at the end of the day, if you go with AAA limousine service as a livery service and you're going to New York City, they're going to have their own insurance policy with whomever. And so that's a contract, and they will abide by that contract. But when it comes to the major rideshare companies today, it's, medical payments coverage, not there.
So I guess, I've never really thought about it other than the convenience. A lot of times you take Uber because you think you're being safer, especially if you're going out for a restaurant, people want to have a drink. They'll say, oh, I'm going to take an Uber to be safer.
Yeah.
So in your
experience, still safe.
It's still safe. It's just, in your experience, you just need to make sure that most of the time you're going to want to get legal counsel if you get into an accident in one of these services.
Yeah, oftentimes I think it's still the safer alternative. But if you're involved in an accident and you are injured, just understand that there's probably not going to be medical payments coverage available to you. And so you're going to have to figure that out when the bills start coming in. And the best way to do that is to contact an attorney.
Okay, so maybe like their insurance should have to pay for it, or
yes,
somehow.
Definitely their insurance.
All right, okay.
And they usually have higher limits. So for example, I said there's 3 different paths. If the Uber driver was at fault, there's going to usually at least be $1 million worth of coverage.
Okay, so just make sure you get what's coming to you. Thank you.
That's right.
We're going to talk about this a little bit more on Facebook Live, too.
Yes.
Okay. All right, but to contact attorney Twilly, you can visit LALawCT.com, follow him on Facebook at LALawCT, or Instagram at GetLALaw.